And developing now, a rising Florida rap star is now charged with double murder. YNW Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demons, is accused of killing two men back in October.
Newly leaked jail footage of YNW Melly is spreading fast, and it shows a side of him the public was never meant to see. His desperate plea for help is raising questions about what's happening behind those bars and why this clip suddenly appeared now. YNW Melly's current legal standing, a case still in limbo. YNW Melly, born Jamel Maurice Demons, remains incarcerated in Broward County, Florida, as of late 2025, amid one of the most closely watched criminal cases in recent hip-hop history. Demons was arrested in February 2019 and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the 2018 deaths of Anthony YNW Sackchaser Williams and Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr., both close associates and members of his musical collective.
Thank you, folks.
The rapper's first trial, held in 2023, ended in a mistrial after jurors failed to reach a unanimous verdict, a highly unusual outcome in a high-profile case that saw intense media scrutiny and conflicting testimony. Subsequent legal proceedings have been marked by procedural challenges, including appeals over the admissibility of digital evidence and ongoing disputes between defense and prosecution over trial preparation. While at one point a retrial was set for September 2025, court documents and reporting confirmed that delays related to evidence appeals have pushed that timeline back, with some filings suggesting retrial is now scheduled for 2027. This extended pretrial period has generated significant legal debate. Under U.S. law, a defendant's right to a speedy trial is constitutionally guaranteed, yet protracted litigation, appeals, and evidentiary battles can legally extend detention without conviction. Critics, including some legal commentators and online commentators, argue that being held for years without a definitive verdict raises due process concerns, especially given Melly's repeated denials of bail or pretrial release. Against this backdrop, Melly's case remains emblematic of broader questions about how high-profile defendants are treated by the criminal justice system, how digital evidence intersects with traditional trial norms, and how long pretrial detention can legally and ethically continue when no conviction has been secured. The viral leak phenomenon, online footage, and public perception. In a digital landscape where a single clip can redraw public narratives overnight, footage purportedly showing YNW Melly in distress or seeking help while incarcerated has periodically circulated across social media platforms. Videos claiming to show Melly begging for assistance or involved in jail incidents have appeared on channels and forums, rapidly spreading among fan communities and hip-hop news aggregators. These clips vary widely in origin, context, and authenticity, and they often lack reliable sourcing or clear timestamps.
And what is your decision?
I will not be testifying.
You will not be testifying.
No, sir.
Is anyone forcing you or coercing you to make this decision?
No, sir.
One recurring theme in these viral posts is the presentation of Melly as vulnerable or overwhelmed by incarceration conditions, often framed as evidence of hardship or mistreatment. Yet tracing the provenance of these clips reveals a murky environment where entertainment channels may reframe or repurpose old footage, out-of-context moments, and unrelated jail recordings to generate clicks. This dynamic makes it difficult to separate verifiable events from sensationalized interpretations without direct corroboration from credible outlets or legal filings. The proliferation of such videos highlights the modern challenges of digital information ecosystems. Clips posted on social platforms can take on a life of their own, shaping public opinion long before, and sometimes without, the factual details are confirmed. Within the Melly discourse, this has compounded polarization. Some viewers interpret leaked footage as evidence of harsh conditions or emotional breakdown, while others dismiss it as opportunistic exaggeration detached from legal records. This environment intersects with law enforcement's typically restrictive policies on recording inside detention facilities, meaning verified official footage is rarely public. Consequently, third-party uploads achieve outsized influence, even when context and accuracy remain uncertain. The result is a digital narrative that often outpaces confirmed facts, illustrating how modern viral culture reshapes the public understanding of ongoing legal cases. Claims of harsh jail conditions, lawsuits, and legal challenges. Over the past 2 years, YNW Melly's legal team has pursued civil action against the Broward Sheriff's Office, BSO, alleging cruel, unusual, and constitutionally violative treatment while he remains in detention awaiting retrial. In late 2024, Melly filed a lawsuit asserting that his incarceration conditions, including prolonged isolation, limited contact with attorneys and family, and restrictions on communication, violated multiple constitutional protections.
Apparent prayers and kisses blown into the air. YNW Melly has been pretty expressive for the camera in the courtroom. What does it mean for him, if anything? We discuss.
The 12-page federal complaint, led by attorney Michael Peasy Jr., contended that Melly had been effectively cut off from the outside world for years, unable to make calls or receive visits, and in some instances denied reasonably private access to counsel. Defense filings emphasized that these constraints undermined his Sixth Amendment right to prepare a defense, while prolonged isolation raised Eighth Amendment concerns about cruel and unusual punishment, especially for a defendant who remains legally presumed innocent. In response to the lawsuit, a federal judge ordered the Broward Sheriff's Office to show cause why Melly should not be released from custody, setting deadlines for detailed explanations of detention conditions and justifications for continued confinement without full access to counsel or family communication. This judicial intervention underscored the seriousness of the constitutional issues raised by the defense and placed pressure on local authorities to justify their detention practices. However, in August 2025, reports confirmed that a federal judge dismissed the lawsuit without prejudice, meaning Melly must first pursue state-level remedies before refiling the federal complaint. The dismissal did not directly vindicate the jail conditions but instead reflected procedural requirements for how and where such constitutional claims must be litigated. These legal maneuvers reveal the complex interplay between criminal prosecution and civil rights litigation. Melly's team is challenging not just the underlying murder charges, but the very conditions of his detention, framing them as part of a broader struggle over due process and legal fairness. Constitutional rights and prison litigation. Due process in focus. YNW. Melly's prolonged detention has drawn attention beyond music and viral clips to fundamental questions about constitutional rights and prison litigation in the American legal system. At issue are several core principles: the Sixth Amendment's guarantee of a speedy trial and meaningful access to counsel, the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment, and the 14th Amendment's due process protections.
Now to an update. Rapper YNW Melly is changing lawyers amid his murder case that is scheduled for retrial in 2027. The reason is because someone on his legal team is also under criminal investigation by these same prosecutors, which he says is a conflict of interest.
One focal point of contention has been Melly's claim that restrictions on attorney visits and communication have impeded his ability to prepare for trial. According to defense filings, there were occasions where meetings with his legal team were delayed, conducted across barriers without privacy, or obstructed in ways that could compromise strategy and confidentiality. These issues, if verified, can materially affect a defendant's right to a fair trial, not simply a procedural complaint. Prolonged isolation has also been central to the discourse. Melly's attorneys described extended periods without phone calls or family visits, framing this as punitive rather than security-driven. While correctional officials maintain that placements like administrative segregation serve to protect safety, critics argue that prolonged separation without clear justification can inflict psychological harm and erode basic rights, particularly for pretrial detainees who have not been convicted. Such claims intersect with broader legal standards governing detention. Courts routinely balance security concerns against individual rights, but extremes can trigger constitutional intervention. Historically, prisoners and detainees have used civil suits, particularly Section 1983 actions, to hold officials accountable for rights violations. Melly's filings reflect this strategy, albeit complicated by procedural hurdles such as the recent dismissal requiring state-level exhaustion. At stake is not only Melly's personal liberty and legal strategy, but also the interpretation of constitutional protections for defendants awaiting trial, a subject that resonates beyond celebrity cases and into broader debates over criminal justice reform and detention standards.
Welcome back, everybody. So rapper YNW Melly is 7 weeks out from his retrial in South Florida, and his defense team believes that that time should be spent out on bond.
Delays and retrial. The legal clock keeps ticking. YNW Melly's double murder case remains unresolved nearly 7 years after his initial arrest in February 2019, and multiple retrial postponements have prolonged his pretrial detention. Melly, whose legal name is Jamel Demons, was first tried in 2023, but that trial ended in a hung jury, halting the process and compelling prosecutors to seek a new date. Since then, the retrial has seen repeated delays driven by legal maneuvering on both sides. In mid-2025, prosecutors formally requested a continuance, citing an unresolved appeal that prevents the retrial from proceeding as scheduled. A Broward County judge acknowledged these complications and set a hearing to address the timing, but as of late 2025, no firm new trial date has been confirmed. This dynamic means Melly continues to await a judicial reckoning while remaining in custody. Part of the delay stems from procedural appeals and evidentiary issues that must be resolved before a jury can be seated. For example, disputes over which pieces of evidence will be admissible, including disputes now ascending through the appellate courts, have slowed the process. The complexity is compounded because these legal battles over evidence and procedure must be concluded before a judge will allow a jury trial to proceed. The extended timeline has drawn scrutiny. Under U.S. constitutional law, defendants have a right to a speedy trial, but in practice that right can be waived or delayed as motions and appeals accumulate. Online discussions reflect public frustration at the time elapsed, with commentators noting that staying in jail for years without a conviction tests the boundaries of constitutional protections. Meanwhile, co-defendant developments, such as YNW Bortland's plea deal and willingness to provide a sworn statement, have shifted aspects of the legal landscape, adding new layers to prosecution strategy. In this climate, the court's decisions on scheduling and evidence will critically shape not just when the retrial occurs, but what narrative jurors ultimately hear. Constitutional debate, rights, detention, and due process. One of the most persistent themes in the YNW Melly saga centers on constitutional rights, especially regarding pretrial detention, access to counsel, and procedural fairness. Melly's legal team filed a high-profile lawsuit alleging that his conditions of confinement, including prolonged isolation, restricted family contact, and impeded attorney meetings, violate fundamental constitutional safeguards.
Rapper YNW Melly is accused of witness tampering now, just as he's about to be retried for murder.
In that 2024 habeas corpus petition, the Broward County Sheriff's Office, BSO, was accused of maintaining conditions cruel, unusual, and beyond belief by effectively severing Melly's contact with the outside world, including lengthy stretches without family visits and limited attorney access. His lawyers argued these restrictions undermined his Sixth Amendment rights to meaningful counsel and preparation for trial, compounding due process concerns. The BSO responded by characterizing Melly's placement as administrative segregation, a classification used when an inmate's presence in general population is deemed a threat to safety, rather than punitive solitary confinement. This distinction is legally significant. Administrative segregation is meant to be a security measure, but critics argue that long-term application without clear good cause hearings can erode detainees' rights. In August 2025, a federal judge dismissed Melly's lawsuit without prejudice, determining that state-level remedies must be pursued first. The dismissal did not assess the substance of the rights claims, but highlighted procedural hurdles defendants face when challenging detention conditions. The public conversation around this case reflects broader debates about the balance between public safety and individual rights. Reddit discussions illustrate how observers interpret extended detention without conviction as a due process issue, with some arguing that extended pretrial incarceration, even in serious cases, should not replace a trial or conviction. At the same time, prosecutors and law enforcement emphasize the seriousness of the alleged crimes and argue that bail or release would present significant risks. This tension between constitutional theory and practical concerns in high-stakes criminal prosecution underscores how Melly's case sits at a crossroads of legal principles and procedural realities. Public reaction and cultural impact. Beyond the courtroom, YNW Melly's legal battles have not unfolded solely in courtrooms and filings. They have become a cultural flashpoint, especially within hip-hop communities and on social media. From the earliest stages of his arrest in 2019, fans have used hashtags such as to express support and frustration at prolonged detention and trial delays. Digital platforms like Reddit, Twitter, and Instagram have amplified these reactions, with users debating constitutional rights, the merits of evidence, and the duration of pretrial incarceration. Some observers express sympathy for the legal process's slow pace, interpreting extended detention without conviction as potentially unjust, while others emphasize the severity of the murder charges and support holding Melly in custody pending trial. Media coverage mirrors this split. Mainstream outlets often report on procedural developments, retrial dates, bond hearings, and legal challenges, with an emphasis on the legal system's mechanics. Hip-hop and entertainment news sources, meanwhile, frame the case in terms of industry impact and fan response, highlighting how Melly's absence from the music scene affects his brand and collaborators. The broader cultural context is significant. Melly's earlier success with songs like Murder on My Mind, later subject to legal controversy over whether it could be used as evidence, has fueled discussion about how artistic expression intersects with criminal allegations. Critics of using lyrics as evidence argue that music often reflects artistic persona rather than literal confessions, while proponents see them as insight into intent. Ultimately, the public discourse around Melly transcends the legal specifics. It taps into broader concerns about criminal justice, celebrity treatment under the law, and how digital culture amplifies both support and criticism. The case highlights how high-profile defendants become symbols in larger debates about fairness, punishment, and media influence, rather than just individuals facing legal scrutiny. The leaked footage of YNW Melly has opened the door to more questions than answers, and the story is far from over. From the conditions behind bars to the mystery of who released the clip, every new revelation adds another layer to an already complicated case. What comes next could impact his legal battle, his future, and public perception in ways no one saw coming. Keep watching. The next development might change everything.